Hi, Scott from Digital Fish with Content That Catches, and today we're going to be doing a bit of a casting shootout with 7 different stickbait rods. We're going to see which one casts the furthest. The test is not terribly scientific. I've got like a 90 gram stickbait here, which is pretty much around the sweet spot for all the different rods that I'm casting, and I'm going to use the same reel on each rod basically. So try and keep the testing as uniform as possible. A little bit breezy today, but we'll do my best to cast in between the gusts so that it's fairly even. That's the plan, that's the test, and we'll see which rod can cast the furthest. We've got this first up is the Shimano Grappler. We've got 2 Tenryu rods, a spiked yellowtail and a spiked Tuna. We've got a Carpenter Blue Chaser, and we've got a CB1 VFR, and we've got a MC Works Explosion. So there's some fairly well-known rod brands there that we're going to be casting with today, and just testing the casting distance of each one. So yeah, let's give it a crack. So here we go, we've got the Grappler first up. Let's give this a crack. Not bad. I'm picking maybe 70 meters, but we're going to mark it out, and then I've got an app on my phone that I'm going to walk it up, and so we'll get measure the furthest and the shortest, and then try and measure the other ones as well. But we'll have a ranking of the best cast and the worst cast based on the rod. There we go. Okay, that was the Grappler. Next up we've got the CB1 VFR 8212. So we'll see how this one goes. Okay, next up we've got the Tenryu spiked yellowtail. We're going to see how this one goes with the 90 gram Burtox stickbait. I've got it wrapped up in sellotape just so it reduces the amount of damage, because obviously dropping onto grass is a bit more likely to mark it than dropping into water. So we'll give this one a crack and see how it goes. All right, next up we have another Tenryu. This is the Tenryu Spike Tuna. The yellowtail's quite a bit lighter. It's like 256 grams as a rod weight. This one's heavy. This is like 350, 360 from memory. So yeah, it's definitely a beefier rod, but it's rated for the same drag rating, 10 kilos. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this compares to the Tenryu Spike Yellowtail. Here we go. So the next rod we have is the MC Works Explosion 845. Yeah, it's been going well so far. Not a lot of difference in the distances, all very close at the moment. Very interesting to see, actually, very interesting. We'll see how the explosion goes. Right, here we go. Next up we have the Yamaga Blue Sniper Blacky 81.6, and we'll give this a crack and see how it casts. Looking forward to this one, actually. All right, now we're down to the last rod. We've got Lucky Last, Carpenter, really good reputation. We're going to see how this one goes. Yeah, looking forward to this. could be good. So I'm just going to give you a quick back view of the casting setup we've got here with the mark and where they're landing. You can see I think you should be able to see the cones in the camera way down the other end of the field. Then we'll go down and have a look.
So just a note here, my casts drifted right for a lot of my attempts at casting as far as I could, partly because I was putting a lot of power into the cast for distance and releasing too early, and also because the wind would sometimes gust through from the left to the right.
So here you can see they're grouped very closely together when it comes to distance. Some were offline, but we tried to bring them across inline so that we can compare them easily. But there's really not much in it between the cheapest rod and the most expensive rod. So we'll line them up and count it off. On my GPS, it was 75 meters. When I marked it off just walking, it was 89. So it's probably at 89 yards, 75 meters, bit of discrepancy, but the GPS, isn't always known to be super accurate when it comes down to meters. So yeah, but we'll be able to compare them. Okay, so the first one, the closest one was the Tenryu Yellowtail, followed by the Carpenter, followed by the Explosion, then the CB1, then the Yamaga, then the Grappler, and finally the Tenryu Tuna. So that's the order of the different ones. The Tenryu Tuna was the furthest by probably about 4 meters, and then the other 3.5 meters, they were all grouped together, really close. So that's really interesting. A couple of times I saw my foot was slightly over the line. That could make a difference here. A couple of times the gusts were a little bit different. That could make a difference here. So not a super scientific test, but it was just really interesting to see that they're all very similar. Most expensive isn't necessarily always the one that casts the furthest, but then again, I guess it depends on what you're buying the rod for. The rods, one was 8 foot, the shortest was 8 foot, the longest was 8'4". But again, it didn't make a big difference, which I'm kind of surprised. So yeah.
So some concluding thoughts on this test. I chose a lure which I thought would be in the sweet spot of each of the rod's lure weight range, so it wasn't too heavy to overpower the blank, but heavy enough to give it the most distance. I was using a Shimano Twin Power 14,000 reel with Studio Ocean Mark spool, PE5 Sunline X8 line, and a 90-pound Varibus leader. When I cast each lure, I did between 4 and 8 casts. There wasn't a set number of casts. It was just until I thought I'd really got the most out of the rod and cast it as far as I thought the rod could cast. What was surprising is that I did some earlier testing in a different part of the park with a bit more wind and my casts were 20 meters shorter. As I mentioned, there was very little difference in distance between the rods, and what surprised me the most was that the MC Works 8'4" and Carpenter 8'4" rods were outcast by shorter rods. With the Tenryu Tuna, which cast the furthest, I had one cast that was a bit of a monster. I managed to maximize my power and timing to produce the best cast. I may have been able to cast a similar distance with different rods if I'd replicated that cast exactly. And lastly, I'll just explain my comment about there being different reasons to buy a rod. In this test, the Carpenter came second to last, and the Grappler, which is about 30% the cost of a Carpenter, cast further and was further than most of the other rods. The expensive rod blanks aren't going to be a 10 out of 10 in every department. They tend to be designed with specific priorities. For example, working the lure very well and fighting fish. Durability is also a major design component. They are meant to perform under pressure, and sometimes those priorities in the design process mean other characteristics like cast distance may have to be compromised. I'll be posting up individual reviews of each rod or most of the rods over the coming months if you want to see how they perform in other areas like working lures and fighting fish. This is Scott from Digital Fish with content that catches.